Welcome to the Emotional Fitness Podcast. Today, we are here on episode 5, and we have a wonderful guest with us to share her amazing journey and her amazing things that she does with helping her clients with even more emotional fitness. I'm here with my co-host, Valerie Andrews. How are you going, Valerie?
I'm great, thanks, Brent. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, how are you? Excited are you for this conversation? I've been waiting for it.
I'm super excited to have Melissa on. I know her work, I know what she does, and I just can't wait for our listeners to hear more.
100%. And this is why we're here, to help our listeners understand or dive deeper to understand more about themselves or create questions so they can do that. So without a further ado, let me introduce you to Melissa Duniam, an amazing coach and facilitator. I'm not going to leave it to her to explain. All I know, it's just magic, it's horses, it's emotion, and I just wish I was in Tasmania. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Melissa. How are you going?
Thanks, Brent. Wonderful, Val. Thanks for having me, and to your audience as well. I'm Melissa. I'm in Tassie, far northwest, up in a little pocket. I live in a place called Millabina. It's quite a busy place. We have a population of 80 people here, so it's a pretty full-on place. But we own an equestrian centre and a farm where we run cattle. And I've been here for 3 years now. We have been dairy farming 25 years before that. And over the last few years, I have kind of stepped down from some of the roles in the industry and hit that life stage where my focus is more on myself and what it is that I want to bring into my world more of these days. And part of that is working with my horses, which is something that I've had a huge passion for most of my life. And I only got into horses in my adult life, actually, when we started dairy farming. That was part of the proviso when I married. I'm to have a horse on the land if I'm going to go dairy farming. And yeah, through that process, I've now ended up as a facilitator and a coach of equine-assisted leadership and learning. So basically, where horses are helping humans spot the human patterns and behaviours, defaults under pressure, and I run women's workshops and working with workplaces as well.
That is absolutely amazing.
That certainly is. And I just love the way, you said specifically you work with women. Do you only work with women, Melissa?
Well, my whole passion is for women like myself and the journey that I've kind of gone on to, Val. But I also know that there's a place for the men in my world as well. And where that's kind of heading for me is the ripple impact that we're having, the empowering the women. Women are showing up in their own worlds in a different way, which is having impact on their relationships, on how they lead, how they raise their kids, whatever aspect that is and role that women play. But the workplaces come in. What happens is women will come in as individuals and then they'll go, oh my God, my workplace needs to be doing this. Is there something that you can do? So we bring in, and I use the combination of EFF, so emotional fitness formula, with EDISC, extended disc practitioner, and the EAL, so the work with the horses as well. So what that's done for me is that's kind of allowed me to stay in the work with the horses, but not burn my horses out. It is quite emotionally charged work because when you are in pattern recognition, we're kind of putting people under pressure in a safe and simulated way. That can amplify emotions for some people. It can raise aspects that they haven't seen of themselves before, which can create that vulnerability. So it can be, I'm very mindful that I want my horses to be my partners and my teammates. I don't want to be using them. I want to be working as a team. And so with that psychological safety that we talk about, it's no different in the way that I work with my horses. So being going and getting my certification in these different realms has helped me step out of that arena and be able to go into workplaces as well and take it away from the indoor and from our home.
That's amazing. I want to be a woman. No, I don't actually. I don't. So it's quite interesting because I do know that you work with women, but I'm so fascinated in what that does for the little bit of experience I've had with horses and what I know about them. So I guess for our men listeners out there that might open up might be a bit harder for men to be starting in the emotional space, but what would you say that would draw or be the biggest, say, identity or the biggest outcome that, say, a woman or potentially what you may see that men might get from your work?
Understanding your patterns and your leadership styles. So to know innately how you operate, what happens when you're dialed up in pressure or uncertainty, when you don't have the answer, when you're working with different people that you haven't kind of met before, because the dynamics, if I rewind it back, the way that I work with women is in 2 different segments. So it's a 1-day women's workshop and networking. So this is for women that are in the roles, that are in the thick of doing all of the things, responsible for other people, tasks, procedures, workplaces, industries, leadership. So it's more the I would say capacity building, but also the self-leadership insights that come from that side. Then I have the 3-day deep dive. So that is a full-blown decoding experience. It takes women out of their everyday environment. So we get caught in the default settings back there that we don't necessarily see or notice within ourselves. We take that away just so that they've got a breather, so that they can actually stop looking at everybody else outside of themselves and all of the responsibilities of looking after and nurturing people, to actually come back and nurture themselves and start asking some of those high quality questions. Who am I without all of those roles? What do I want at this stage in my life? Where am I heading next? So those 3 days really help to cement that in. They're in a space with other women who are working on themselves as well and going through that process and that journey. There's no distractions, no jobs or task list of each day that they need to get through. So we create that grounded space and just simply take the time, because that's something that women don't necessarily give themselves, men maybe as well. So the 3-day event really goes into the full day experience with the horses becomes something that's very personal, whereas the workshops with the women, there's more women. So there's about 16 people that I try and have attend that. For my 3-day events, I try and keep it between 6 to 8 women. So it's very, very intimate. You get to have the entire day teamed up with horses through that process. So there's no swapping and changing with other people. You have your team, you have your horse, and you have your patterns that just show up. So if we're talking about with men, what would they find? I could share some of the experiences of some of the teams that I've had come through with me working with the horses, also integrating EFF and also integrating eDisc, because I think sometimes we like not the diagnostic tools, but we want to visually see a representation, because people think working with the horses is just fluffy and soft and something nice to have.
Yeah.
You get to pat and hold. So the way that I've structured the framework of what I deliver is that we will have something tangible with eDisc. They'll go in, they'll do their assessment, the reports will come back to me. We'll then go in and have the full day workshop with a team or a workplace, men and women, where then we can start talking a little bit more about eDisc, about EFF. I can pluck and pull depending on what their gap analysis says too. What are the challenges that they've got? What are they working on at the moment? So perspective really looks like I'm just going to stop for a minute. I just got distracted with what
That's
you
okay.
put up there, Brent.
I was just trying to help Val because I wanted
Oh, that's okay. That's all good. So I'll start with where I was. So yeah, the diagnostic tool of eDisc. We then go in and have an experience with the horses. And what happens with that is I don't really give too much information, so people have no idea what they're going into. And what happens through uncertainty, those natural default tendencies dial up. So if you're somebody of a C energy, you'll be wanting more information. If you are of S energy, you want to know how this looks. Like, who else, can we do this together? I don't want to do this on my own. You'll have to see the D energy sometimes. They'll leave everybody behind and go and get shit done.
I was about to say that, just give me the reins, I'm on the horse, let's go.
Now, that's an excellent point too, Brent, because there's no riding whatsoever with what I do. And the reason that is in the training that I've chosen to it needs to be a level playing field. Your horse needs to come in as a teammate, not as an expectant of what you are wanting to achieve from the horse. So if you think in layered roles, the silo is no longer there. You don't have somebody that's above you, below you. Everybody is entering this uncertainty at the same playing field. And that can bring up vulnerability, especially when you think about the roles and the hats and the responsibilities that we do wear too. It can look like you're kind of showing and shining parts of yourself that everybody thought you had together. And you had the answer, and maybe people looked up to you for that as well. So you can see the vulnerability that plays out there. But then we do a debrief. So what did you experience in the arena? Because I can't guarantee what you're going to have pop up for you out there, because there's so many parts. We've got our patterns, we've got our natural wiring, we've got our performance, we've got our masks, we've got our coping strategies, and also too we all have some sort of trauma of some sort or some historical data that we draw on from the past, and we just believe that this experience is going to trigger something inside. So I'm very mindful of how I create that space and that vulnerable area to start with, and that's creating that safe container that anything is allowed to come up here. But also knowing that this is not going to be familiar. This is a stretch growth process that is not going to blow you up, but it's definitely going to take you outside of your comfort zones. So sometimes that can feel unfamiliar, but it doesn't mean that hard is unsafe. It just means it's going to be a stretch.
I was going to say, Val, like, how amazing is that structure? Like, what we know about uncertainty and on how to move through uncertainty is growth. And I love, Melissa, how, and Val, what do you reckon, but how you set everyone up to have to deal with uncertainty from the beginning, which opens that space, and then they feel safe and psychologically safe. And then that's when their nervous system must relax. We were talking about this similar thing, weren't we, Val?
Yeah, we were. And it's more so making sure, like you said, that psychological safety, making sure everyone knows what to expect. However, they don't really know, but it's giving them the framework and the pieces of the puzzle before they begin something.
And it's also, Val, giving them permission to explore those aspects of themselves that they've probably tucked away in those back cupboards for a little while, or forgotten about, or covered over. And I think when even as adults, when we're given and granted that permission to be fully ourselves, no matter what comes up, we're here as a collective. That's where the power sits. And we go through a debrief process of what have you just experienced out there? Share with us what that meant for you, because the meaning you're going to give to it is going to be very, very different to the meaning that the person next door to you has as well. So
yeah. So we try to keep this podcast in a structured way, but we also, in our guests, our conversation, want this like unique, organic experience. But there's a bit of a framework, and I felt like asking this question from what you just said, like, because they don't know. So what do you think is like that most important emotional skill that they experience or you see them learning, like that impact you saw they had, that we could say that emotional fitness, stretch, or growth that they get out of your work?
Perspective shifting. It's the biggest thing, is opening their eyes to aspects of themselves that they either forgot about, didn't realize. Potential is a huge one. I have women and men in workplaces too, Brent, that come in. So if you're somebody that, say for instance, you're quite reserved kind of person, you're not willing to put yourself out the front there, it's really interesting because some people get the performance measures on and they'll put the masks on how to actually achieve. And the best thing with working with horses is that their bullshit radar, it's phenomenal. Like, they can pick up on incongruency, and that's a huge thing that we work with. Making sure that what is congruent from the inside to the outside, that there's alignment in self. And when we have people who are kind of watching other people suck back, some people just step in and do the thing. And they feel like that's their responsibility because they have the confidence to do that thing, or they have the horse experience to be able to take over. And that's not what the horses are looking for, because it's alignment as a team. It's not one island, not one individual that is going to get through the challenges and the obstacles, because they're quite cryptic, what we put out in the arena. There's a few different segments that you kind of go through the tasks together as a team. And it's interesting because mostly it's the people who do suck back to start with that kind of offer these little glimmers of light quietly. And we say, be curious, explore it, see what it means, because I can't tell you that that's a wrong or right, because there's no such thing in this. And you watch the horses respond in a way where this person feels so heard and so seen and aligned. So they've watched somebody who looks like they've got confidence go out and try and achieve something, and the horse is not willing to work with that person because the horse hasn't been asked, are you okay with this? They've been forced.
Yeah, they're not. The
And
horses
so-
are not psychologically safe. They're just as
Exactly.
emotional beings as we are.
Yeah. And the number one thing that a horse looks for in a herd, in my herd, domestic wild, is safety. It's what they're wired for.
It's actually, I'm just like resonating. I can remember, I've got to tell you this little story. I remember the last time I rode a horse, his name was Gus. And I went with all the girls. You know, I was in high school, and of course I had to hang out with the girls. So we went horse riding. Now, my experience was this lady came up to me, probably a Melissa type person. She probably saw me before I came in and said, have you ever ridden a horse? It didn't look like you'd have. And I said, no. She said, I'll give you Gus. And I said, why? And she said, because he's lazy and he won't gallop, and he just wants to trot. And she goes, but one rule is that you have to be angry at him if you want him to do something. You've got to be certain. Now, in my story and my issues, I had a lot of self-worth and a lot of emotional regularity from my neurodivergency and a bit of trauma stuff. So I was in that space of trying to, I don't know, be okay with myself. And my experience was going through my brain when you were having this story, where, but it was different because I was writing it, where I was like, oh, please, can we go this way? And I was sort of talking to him, but I was not, well, we're doing this, as in, we're going, come on, we're together, which is what came to me just then. And I was like him and me, until the lady went past and she said, just say F and go. And I went, please F and go, Gus. And he just took off. And we haven't seen him run like that forever. And one reason I'm saying this is what I just realized is I connected with him. So he would have felt my, tell me if I'm right here, I'm happy to be wrong. He maybe have felt my inconsistency or my uncertainty until he probably knew I was nice, because he's being really nice with you. Until then I was like, come on then. He liked a bit of a punch, but he knew I was love. So he took me on a great ride. And the lady said, we've never seen him like that. Never rode a horse again, but thank you. You reminded me of that, and it made it so much more special.
Congruency and energetic alignment, they're the two things that are powerful. So I like to explain it in a way where it's very simplified and grounded. Think it, feel it, do it. Don't just go and do it because your mind and your body has to catch up to that. Making sure that every part of yourself is on board and making sure that you mean it. And I think assertive leadership needs to be debunked, because assertive leadership is being very clear in what you want. It's having really good boundaries. It doesn't mean that you're being abrupt or rude, but just being so clear in who we are and what it is that we want to go and achieve, and getting somebody else on board. I had one event here, Brent, and I have one horse who would rather have a whoa than a go. And he is great for the emotional resonance. He will hold space for people who just kind of need to download that emotional. And he will literally park up and say, take as long as it needs. and he would just go inwards to himself, which is nearly, you have to watch it because sometimes it can be a shutdown. And I don't want him to be emotionally shut down either. So I'm constantly watching this to make that they're okay. But I had a couple of women who are in leadership roles, and both of them working together, it nearly became a power trip of the best way to achieve the outcome. So outcome, 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 rather than thinking back in the process, but then also the feeling like, hey, have we got the people here on board as well? And this horse was just kind of parking up and he didn't want to go forward. And in the end, we had a conversation about energetic alignment. And so these women are quite results driven. And their first thing was to go physical, not to actually build their energy up. They actually physically started to hit the butt of this horse who was highly offended because to him, that elevation of that congruency, they were confused. So they didn't actually know what they wanted to do. They just knew that they wanted some action to happen. And in that confusion that they had, the horse just waited for them to try and kind of get it together and figure it out. But it was confusing to him. So he didn't have any clarity on what it was that they were trying to get him to do. Do you want me to go forward? Do you want me to turn? Do you need me to go faster? What is going on? So they were just so focused on outcomes and what can we do to make this happen, that they bypassed those steps of congruency and went straight to physical. And that could have, with any other horse, that could have been very, very dangerous because that response would have been a huge escalation to him outside of his safety zones as well. So it's really interesting to watch when you talk about that. And all we had a conversation around was, when I talk about energetic alignment, it doesn't mean that you need to kind of start smacking. What does that mean for you when you think about how you're naturally wired? And is somebody else showing and demonstrating that they're on board and get it too? Are they wired the same way as you, or are they different? So trying to bring that alignment and that congruency back into place, the flow starts through. So we're all energy. We're all energy, and we know that we bring a vibe.
Yeah.
So the horses, it can't lie with that vibe.
No. Oh, that sounds amazing, Melissa. I mean, so many people would benefit from the work that you do, whether it be in Tasmania or elsewhere. And I guess one of the things that came up for me in amongst all that, like how much they could learn about themselves and their teams just with what you do. Like, it sounds fascinating. Like you said, the horses don't lie and it will show everything. And the horses have a frequency of like higher than humans as well. I think it's a really high frequency as well. So hence the reason they're really good to work with.
Yeah, they could feel our heart rate away from, I think it's 5 feet, 5 meters away, 5 meters away. So for them to be able to feel you and your energy and your heartbeat, they're going to know where that's sitting in your body. So when we go and grab a lead rope and work with those horses, they instantly can feel that energy through that lead rope too. So
that sort of that made, yeah, and it made me think. When I don't know horses, but like when you go and they run their hand down the leg of the horse, and it's about it. It's in the movies and stuff, and it's a trust, and they can lift it up. That would be all part of the congruency, and them feeling your safety. That's absolutely amazing.
Well, you think about it too. Like, you've got to build rapport. It's no different to relationships that we can't just go and step in and tell somebody what we want of them as well. So it's building that rapport, building that trust, but also building the confidence as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just so fascinated. I'm actually thinking of coming and doing your program next year.
You should definitely do that.
Yeah, I know. I just I haven't got there yet. But I guess there's one question I'd love to ask you from a facilitator and your perspective on what boundary have you had to learn to protect your own emotional health in this work that you do?
So interested. That's a great question too, Val, because this is something that I reflect on quite a bit. So a backstory to the farmer, so dairy farmer for 25 years. The backstory to that was I was a hairdresser for 11 years before that. And I had to get out of hairdressing because I just felt so drained by the energetic exchange that was happening, but I didn't have the language or the words for it then. As I've kind of rolled through, as I've got older, I just have had, and I didn't have an awareness, but I had this ability to have people open up to me and share things with me that they wouldn't necessarily, they feel comfortable sharing with me, but I didn't know how to control or manage that. So I absorbed a lot of that and took a lot on. So I have identified maybe over the last 5 or 6 years of my own energetic exchange, my own boundaries, my own relationship boundaries as well, and realizing that I do not need to get in the hole with people, with their own stories, with their own experiences, but to hold space for people. And when we can recognize that somebody is holding this container for us and a process for us to go through, that we don't have to put the performance measures on. We're not being adjudicated for what we're doing, but just being allowed to express ourselves. But when we realize that we don't need to kind of overlay or map that onto somebody else, or someone doesn't need to fix that or pick it up for us, there's a lot of power in that when we realize that we can actually start to go through that process ourselves, because the biggest relationship that we have is with our self-concept.
Yeah, and that is the start of the personal development journey. I'm going to bring this back to a bit of emotional fitness formula. Melissa has, to me and Val, am I right, Val, that we're just hearing, oh my God, listen to all the models. Oh my God, this is amazing. But the perspective in the emotional fitness formula is in the bottom. And you go, why does it last? Well, it's the foundation, the perspective with a clean perception, to have a clear perspective of actually what is going on outside of yourself. So I had a lot of that, because if the journey from ambition to meaning and the journey of becoming more emotionally fit is having a healthy, clean relationship with uncertainty, but with a perspective and a perception, but then also someone creating a space where it's about presence over performance. I was just going, oh my God, this is amazing. Like within that, I would sort of like to say we're getting to part of the section where we could talk about a bit of case study, a bit of an ethical usage point, no personal details or identifying. But is there, from everything you said, to just link all that in for our listeners, can you share a transformational story that represents what you about that perspective or that team a little bit deeper, and specifically say what principle that we could bring back to the emotional fitness? Because I listened to the last episode, so I can get some really good clarity about what we're doing here.
One particular standout performer, I think if we circle back, the identity, that's a core structure of the 3-day deep dive, Brent, is starting at that self-concept, because the women that I work with, like I said, they've been in the roles, they've been in service to other people for so long. They hit that life stage where they're going from ambition into meaning and integrating. And the question really becomes, who am I without all of those roles? So it's kind of like a shedding process that we'll go through. But I think one of the key ones that stands out for me, I say I don't get in the hole with some of these, that I've kind of learnt to put these boundaries in place. There was one particular experience that I watched one of the horses holding space, but it kind of come up quite quickly for this woman, because she was in that arena. So it was the 3-day, I'll rewind it back. It was the 3-day event. It was the day of the full day workshop working with the horses. And I kid you not, it was within 5 minutes of getting to know the horse, learning to building that trust and that rapport, ready to move forward. So she'd built up a little bit of confidence and was ready to lead. Now, most women that come have never been around a horse before, and that is what the framework is built on. You can be of horse experience, but horsemanship doesn't fit in what I do. Within 5 minutes, the horse was putting her into the corner of the arena and she couldn't get out. So she was blocking her from accessing moving forward. And this repeated over and over. And this, within the 5 minutes, she just turned around and she said to me, how does a horse know that this is exactly what happens to me in my everyday life?
Wow. Okay.
I don't.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I am showing up in this way where I'm being overridden. I'm not being accounted for. My boundaries are absolutely squashed. And I then go and put myself in vulnerable situations that I shouldn't be in, but I don't know who I am and what I need in order to be able to move forward. So if we talk about it from self-identity concept, that became an emotional washover because the reality, it was the mirror just turned around and faced her. And the horses had that sorted within 5 minutes.
Wow.
So there was a lot of emotion with that. And that horse, that experience that I talked about before, where I watched him park up on all fours and he just took a big breath. We got them away from the side of the arena, so they were both safe. And he just breathed out and he literally felt like he said, you just take as long as it's going to take for you to process. And they sat there for, I would say, 10 minutes and I had to walk away because it wasn't the story or the impact. It was watching what the horses can actually profoundly show somebody in such a quick time. Like you think about it from a coaching perspective, that pattern recognition can take a few times to identify these parts. And the horses just show it in 5 minutes. It just blows my mind. So for her to be able to identify those patterns that fast, the transformation could happen because she had the awareness so fast. She had the insight that this is something that's not going away. But what we were able to help support her with was to facilitate it in a way of making choice in a safe way. What would change look like for you? So for her, she found her way to actually speak up and use her voice and say, we're not heading in that direction. I actually want to go in this direction. We started to watch the change happen with the horses because all of a sudden she took leadership. And when horses are looking for leadership, then they will follow.
Yeah. Wow. That's a profound story. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you, Brent, for asking the question because, for our listeners out there, knowing the work that you do and how transformational it is, and you bring such a unique way to it is just amazing. So I know we're just going to wrap it all up now, as I'm aware we've gone a little bit over. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming on and sharing who you are, what you do, and how you transform these women's lives and teams as well, because everything's leadership. And I guess if you can let the listeners know how they can contact you, that would be great.
Yeah, so my business...
Before we do that, though, let's just before we do that, let's just do the one gym rep. We got to give our listeners that one little gym rep, and then there might be outside of what you're doing. Just have a little think of, they might not have horses, they might not be in Tasmania, but what is one thing that they could play with today that will not only help them be emotionally fit or identify maybe some of these patterns, but also give them an experience that they are coming to Tasmania, because that's what we would love for more people. Is there something?
Look, I will share one of the most challenging, stretching questions that I ask through my events, and I'm more than happy to share that with you.
Please do. Now get ready, listeners. This is
and that question is, how well do you know yourself?
Yeah.
And that is it. How well do you know yourself?
And for most of us, the crickets just got louder. But this is also the space where you can ask the question and let it simmer, because it's not about a race and it's not about performance. It's about presence for yourself and for others. And one of my most favorite sayings, Jung talks about it, even Frankl, that it's a privilege of a lifetime to get to know thyself. So this is what this podcast is about. This is what I love Melissa's work. And I feel a bit redundant as a coach and an emotional fitness mentor, and I think I need to become a cowboy. And the reason why I say I love cowboys and trucks and the country, I grew up on a farm when I was a young baby in the family, but I had a thought I would like to ask before I go back to Valerie. You know how cowboys, Melissa, have this calmness, certainty, and strength about them? Like, that's the portrayed facade that we see. But in real life, it's true. Those horses are more than the dog best friend. The dog is it's expendable. It's a tool. The horse is their partner. I just see all of that in that. And what the question is do you, because it presupposes to me, they become more emotionally aligned to self with their horse, which is aligned to them. Am I off?
And horses are great at picking patterns. And so for them to keep themselves safe too, Brent, they're going to be looking and predicting ahead. So if someone's predictable, if someone is repeatable, dependable, then that relationship will become more solid quite quickly.
Yeah.
That makes so much sense. And we should be our own horse for ourselves. And on that, let's go to Valerie for the closing.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you to all the listeners that have listened to this episode today with Melissa and the amazing work that she does. And how can our listeners find you, Melissa?
So my business is Leading Rein, Val, and Leading Rein is REIN, as in take the reins with the horses. So I have a website. You can reach out to me there. I have a subscribers list that I create emails weekly, but I am on socials. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn as Melissa Duniam and as Leading Rein.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much. And until next episode.
Yeah, and to next episode, before we go, all those informations will be for you to be able to see for Melissa. And if I'm able to do it, we'll put a little bit of a booklet for you together, or some sort of points that you can take away with you. But please, and so thank you so much for listening for our first guest, and thank you, Melissa. It's a privilege, really, to be able to get know you even more. And all we have to say left is thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you in the gym.
Thanks for having me too.
And bye. Welcome